Cali, I got the West, man. Deuce got the Chris. So, man, what they gonna do now? Put the West and the Chris together, man.
Where you at? Where you at? Where you at? Atlanta, where you at? Where you at? Where you at? Birmingham, where you at? Where you at? Where you at? Oakland, where you at? Where you at? Where you at? Down south, showing no shame. Got the girls at the club, we shaking that thing. Got the young player coming up on the run down. See the girls and they MC style. Like, real life, body still right. From the weekend G to the end of the night. Got the screw coming out, gotta get the club high. Don't get screwed on house and die. Everybody wanna be down with the side. 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 Everybody trying to get down with the side.
Welcome to the Free Lunch Podcast, home of the New South Movement. This is your boy Tight, and I got my man BG's with me. BG, what's happening?
Sapase Naule. Grandmama made it. Free Lunch Podcast, what's happening then? It's your boy BG. Back up in here one more time. Tight. How you feel?
What just happened? What were you speaking? Were you speaking in tongue? Or what you were doing?
Hey, one time for all my Haitian family out there, to all them Creoles that tune in to the Free Lunch Podcast. I just said, "What's up? I'm good." Sapase Nabule.
You say what you say? We speaking in tongues. Hilarious.
I don't know if you speaking in tongue. Are you trying to get a rap deal or what's going on? You took a page out of C. Frank Campbell's notebook just then.
I came with that rapper's intro. Yeah, man, I was feeling kind of islandish for this episode, so I had to give the people a little something different.
What's been going on, sir? How things on your end?
Everything's good, man. Everything's good. We back up in here one more time. Got a good topic for the people today. Getting a lot of good feedback too, man. The brand is really growing. Getting a lot of people talking about enjoying the podcast and the topics. Got people shooting topics that they want to hear us talk about. So I'm just extremely overwhelmed with the response that people are giving us, and it's serving as encouragement that we're bringing something that people value, that they're enjoying. And it's motivating me to just keep this thing rolling, bro. How about on your end?
Well, we said at the beginning of the year that 2015 was going to be a breakout year, so you got to speak that into existence. But it's something in the air, and it's actually a conversation that me and a colleague of mine was having, a real close friend of mine that I work with, and we were essentially just talking about something is happening in the universe right now. I can't really put my finger on it. But there's an awakening happening between a lot of folk, and I guess the question is with this awakening happening, what's going to happen when this awakening of people and technology collide? Because something's about to happen big, and I don't know what that is. All I know is that Free Lunch Podcast will be a part of that big happening.
For sure.
In the words of Samsung Galaxy, the next big thing is here, and that is Free Lunch Podcast.
There are a lot of forces that are lining up, and it's calling for people to reach that point of awakeness and being more aware of what's going on, and then technology growing all the time. Yeah, the things are lining up, so we're gonna be right there on the front end of it.
And we really been slipping on the blogs end of things, but I really want to do a post on awakening and this technology collision that's about to happen. And this is just coming from my thoughts, right? Just looking at how we're seeing this large awakening amongst our peers, amongst our colleagues, and just really in the universe. And with that change and with how fast technology is rapidly growing, I'm telling you, something big is about to happen. I don't know what that is. All I know is I want to be a part of it, and it starts here with Free Lunch Podcast.
We're right here. Everything else going good in your neck of the woods?
It is, but do I need to put a disclaimer out there, or should I say that for another time?
What kind of disclaimer you trying to make?
Well, it's in line with throwing people under the bus, but I can say that for another time.
Well, ain't no time like the present, especially if I'm the one that's finna get rolled up under the bus. You might well give the people what they want.
Is that what they want? Is that what keeps the podcast interesting?
I think that's one part that they enjoy because I hear about it.
Well, that's the whole point. To the Free Lunch podcast listeners, the purpose of the podcast is to invoke thought, interesting conversation, and to get your mind to be stimulated, not to wonder what is happening in each of our personal lives. and I just leave it at that for now.
Read between the lines.
Read between the lines and read between the lines.
I'm just glad the people listening, man.
Oh, 100%. I'm 100%. And it was some humor behind that, but it was also some truth behind that too.
That was a sincere statement.
Oh, most definitely, most definitely. So, other thing I've been on before we even jump into this thing, man, I've been back on my boy, man.
Who was that?
It's been a while since I don't know. I don't know if you grew up watching wrestling, man. But you know, I was sent a YouTube a few days ago from a friend, and they had my ball now. Woo!
Woo! Ric Flair. Woo! Ric Flair. Ric Flair.
Hey, Ric Flair. I've been back on. So all week I've been quoting Ric Flair all week.
You got it.
Am I too old? Am I too old to be quoting Ric Flair?
Man, that's our generation. You got to have Ric Flair in your life. If you didn't, I'd be like, where were you? What were you doing? What were you doing on your Saturday mornings? WCW
Styling and profiling.
Woo!
Woo! I'm holding up the four horsemen right now. The four finger.
You got it, man.
Man, that was my show. So I hate to diverge and go on this whole tangent, but you asked me what I've been doing, and that's what I've been doing, sir.
Hey, man, the Rolex way.
Styling and profile.
Diamond ring wearing.
Woo!
Woo!
But anyway, man, I don't want to diverge too quick. I think it's about that time. Oh wait, hold on. We need to get some. If you are interested in contributing to this movement, and this is quite frankly, the movement is upon you right now. For those of you that fail to recognize and realize that free lunch is here to stay, and this is definitely a movement, then I think you are out of luck because this thing is real. So if you are interested in contributing and participating in this movement, we have different opportunities within the podcast for you to sponsor a segment of the podcast. There are a lot of entrepreneurs out here. I get quotes, I get email, I get Facebook posts from all of you entrepreneurs that are starting your own businesses. I've never known so many philosophers and business starters in my life until I became a social network person. And even though I'm anti-social network, there was a point in time where I had Facebook. And there was a point in time where everybody was starting a business. So for those of you that are interested in sponsoring a segment of the podcast, reach out to either BG or to myself, or shoot an email to Free Lunch Podcast or to any of our stalkers on Instagram or any of those social media outlets. And BG will be giving you that information at the end of the podcast. So I just had to say that.
Thank you. We appreciate your support in any way that you can.
We do. But with that said, I think it's time, man.
And now it is time for the moment you all been waiting for. You got it together?
I'm ready.
How many we got? 1 or 2?
Man, I had 3, but I'm going to go with this one right here.
Get to him.
Woo! I just had to do that before I started. When I was 17, I did what people told me. Did what my father said, did what my mother mold me. but that was long ago. I'm in control, never gonna stop. Control to get what I got. Control. I like to have a lot. Control. And now I'm all grown up. Woo!
Ric Flair. Jamming. Control. Janet Jackson.
Had to.
Take us back to the 80s.
Had to. My other choices was a little Usher, or a little Usher My Way, or a little Frank Sinatra / Jay-Z My Way. But given that she was the only female option, and I just kind of wanted to do a throwback to the 80s.
Good call. Now the audience, I'm sure, is wondering where we're going with that.
Well, this is where we're going with it, and I can let you give your perspective on it. But I'll begin by saying this: I am only here so that I will not be fined.
You know why I'm here.
I am only here so I will not be fined.
You know why I'm here.
And that's exactly where we going. I think that in light of the Super Bowl that's currently approaching, and really if you reflect on the entire 2014-2015 NFL football season, there's been a protagonist besides the obvious Ray Rice incident, the Deflategate, Roger Goodell, essentially his antics. There's been another story, and that story has been really along the lines of the Seattle Seahawks. There was an occasion where one of my favorite players to date, Richard Sherman, did a cutout kind of scene, really going at the NFL. But then the second one is really in regards to the comments that, or the lack of comments made by that of NFL running back, starting running back for the Seattle Seahawks, Marshawn Lynch.
Beast mode. Get
them Skittles and go into beast mode. But, I think just from all the dialogue and the media press and the coverage, really some thoughts that have really been on my mind, really from the beginning of the season when he was first, when all of this started happening, and really just wanted to really just have an outlet to talk about some of the comments that other media personalities have made, but also really take a bird's eye view approach on this entire situation where you have Marshawn Lynch essentially versus the NFL. You have any thoughts on that? Because what I would also like to do is, before we even take a real deep dive into it, I really want to just read a brief intro into the actual NFL media policy, and before we even had an in-depth conversation. But any opening thoughts, BG?
Well, I just say in talking about it and in that framework, it's just, I think, been a genius move on the behalf of Beast Mode and how he's handling this situation and how he's actually been handling the media for the last couple of seasons or whatnot. It's a very introspective type of thing, when you take it deeper than just the interviews and how he's approached the interviews, but really looking at how this example and these, I guess, examples are really reflective of how this society functions and how certain elements of society expect certain things from certain individuals, even at the cost of the individuals going against how they want to do things and how they want to live their own lives. So we'll get more into it, but I'm just really enjoying sitting back and watching them work, not only on the field, but in the media room.
And you make a very good point, because essentially that's the direction we want to go in. It's that latter part of what you essentially just said. But before we even dive into the conversation, in-depth conversation, I do want to read the NFL media policy. I'm not going to read the entire policy. However, from profootballwriters.org, which is the official voice of pro football writers promoting and fighting for access to NFL personnel to best serve the public, PFWA, as they're known. They actually list out the NFL media policies for 2014 football season. And number 2 of the policy, which is entitled Weekly Locker Room Access, they break down the access that the head coaches, the assistant coaches, the players should have to the media, and not taking a real deep, not reading the entire blog, but I do want to point out from the players' perspective, it states, players must be available to the media following every game and regularly during the practice week as required under legal rules and their contracts and as noted above. It is not permissible for any player or any group of players to boycott the media. Star players or other players with unusual heavy media demands must be available to the media that regularly cover their teams at least once during the practice week. In addition to their required post-game media availability, this applies to a maximum of 1 or 2 players per team only. The minimum for such players does not include other required media obligations such as visiting team conference calls, network production meetings, and national media interviews arranged by the team. Last paragraph. All NFL players, upon request of their club public relations director, are required to participate in weekly conference calls with the media from the opposing team's city. While a player is encouraged to be available for this call every time he is requested by his club public relations director, no player is required to do more than 5 such opposing team media conference calls each regular season. No player, however, can refuse to participate in the weekly media conference call during the playoff.
Nothing.
Initial thoughts?
Nothing. There's nothing in there that speaks to you having to say so many words in your interview or you got to address certain topics. All I got from that was you just got to be available. And from what I've seen in all of these cases, and he's been doing it throughout, like I say, throughout the season for the last couple of seasons, he's available. The interviewers have an opportunity to ask questions. Now, however he chooses to ask the questions may not be what they're looking for, but in terms of what you just read and what that policy states, he's done that to a T. So I don't know what the big to-do is.
So here's the catch-22. Or not necessarily to catch-22, but here's the answer to that question, right? So at what point it specifically states that based on his contract, etc. So we're not inclined to what his contract is. I would think that his contract, just from the personality that he is probably the minimum of what is required from the media perspective. But I don't know that. So I guess that's the only piece of information that we're lacking from the remainder of this conversation.
Looking at it, you got Marshawn Lynch that has historically been a guy that he doesn't do a lot of talking, especially when it comes down to the game of football. He goes out and he plays the game. He plays the game hard, and his approach is just letting his play and his actions on the field speak for him, and that's known throughout the current organization that he plays for, his teammates, and it even goes back to his college days. And you got a kid or a guy that comes from Oakland, California. You know, he's just got that, you know, he moves like that. He ain't about a whole lot of talking. He just about that action. So he doesn't come from this thing of putting a lot of pride and effort into being a media darling or caring about how people perceive you. It's just like, you're going to respect me based off of what I do. And that is very contradictory to how our society trains us to function. Our society trains us to try to make everybody like you and do different things. But this guy's just real to himself. He's living his truth from what I can tell. And he's just going out there, and it's like you can like it or you can hate it. But I'm going to go out here and I'm going to perform and I'm going to do my job to the best of my ability. But I feel like it's causing a lot of friction because he's not moving like somebody else wants him to move.
So here's my thoughts. Initially, I believe I read a while ago or during a conversation where it was stated that Marshawn Lynch used to do, when he was in college, used to do interviews. And there was a time and a point to which, and keeping in mind, he actually went to Berkeley, I believe. Cal Berkeley, right, which is a prestigious school within itself. But I read in an article or through conversation that he used to do, there was a time where he did interviews. However, during one of those interviews, he was essentially misquoted. And from that point, he refused to do media interviews because of that very same reason, that he could be taken out of context or misquoted. Fast forward to 2014, to your point, he's been true to himself and to his word, if that is indeed the case. My challenge with the entire situation is really bigger than the game of football. I believe football in this situation allows a bigger issue to be pointed out, and you kind of stated it in your opening, in that you have the NFL, which is essentially led by a group of people that are not like the members of the organization or their employees. So at the top, you have a group of individuals that may have grown up one way or may have their own views and perspectives of how ways should be based on environment, because what environment supersedes DNA. So when you have this group of people at the top and they are essentially have a group of employees that are at the bottom, then you're going to have a disconnect. And I think this is the perfect example of how you have this group of people that allow ego being the NFL's ego, to essentially try to forcefully control one of their workers or one of their employees. And in a lot of ways, that's the perspective I've taken just from being an outside viewer of the entire Marshawn Lynch situation.
To me, says we pay you money, now dance. We give you all this fame and this fortune, now dance the way that we want you to dance, just like we, and dance until we tell you to stop. But in a work environment, I, as an employee, I can work and I can put my talents on the line to produce this product. If we're talking about, the football thing, is quality football performance and quality football games, I can do that for you, but I don't have to sacrifice my dignity and what I stand for and my values. Marshawn basically does not respect the media, because the media is what it is. There are some media outlets and media sources that take advantage of people. They twist stories all the time, and then they can take your words and paint whatever kind of image about you, and you got to deal with that. So if you're going to disrespect me, then I'm equally in my right to be, to not trust you and not perform the way that you want me to perform. And I applaud the Seattle Seahawks organization and people closest to him for just kind of saying that, he's not a media person, and they're taking that as like he just doesn't speak well and all that type of stuff. But the guy can speak very well, and we've seen that because in dealing with people that he respects, he talks to people. He talked to Dion last year prior to the Super Bowl when he didn't talk to anybody else. And then here recently, we've seen him do like little commercial spots for like Skittles and one for Progressive, which was actually pretty funny. So he can do it. It's just a matter of if he wants to do it with you. And they don't really like that, which I think does speak to the genius of it, and him empowering himself and knowing, you know, what his capabilities are by taking that stance, and is really shining this light and putting the mirror on the media to say, like, y'all got to start using some license when you treat or when you come in and you get these stories. Like, you need to be using some discretion and some judgment, and start also taking into account human beings when you're writing these stories and running this stuff on television, versus just getting the story and doing whatever you want to do with it without taking any account into how it's going to affect the individual that you're covering.
What do you think about, so you've kind of taken this whole concept and switched it to the media. What are your thoughts on coming from the head guys at the NFL?
Oh, it's the same. It's the same thing. They're in the position because those hands, they work in collaboration together. So the NFL, for some strange reason, and I guess I don't know the numbers, but I'm sure that a lot of the revenue that is generated in the NFL comes from how these media sources operate and function. So the NFL is under the impression that they need the media to have this all access to these players' lives and stuff like that, to feed back into the overall brand. So they're going to be in the table, sitting down together, working in concert. So somebody in the media say, hey, we don't like the way Marshawn Lynch is handling these interviews. You, commissioner, you, league, need to do something. Hence why he keeps getting hit with these fines to make him get in line. And, you know, that's a whole nother set of principles that makes me think about, of course, in my radical activist mind of the plantation. But these things work together. These institutions work together. And so they're going to work together to put this pressure on this young man to conform to what they want him to do. And it's just a reflection of where we are, and you can take that across to just our everyday workplaces, to where you got all these entities working together to make us as employees do certain things, and some of those things we're looking at like, man, that doesn't even make sense. Sometimes not even ethical, but because they want to do something for the overall brand, they try to force you into complying into that particular culture. So I just feel like the media is an extension of the NFL, and they're working together. And in this particular case, they're working together to try to make this man do something that he just ain't really about doing.
I agree with them sentiments. I actually believe that, like I said previously, that it's obvious that there's a disconnect between the players and the actual NFL, particularly Roger Goodell, who's the commissioner. When you have outbursts such as in the skit that Richard Sherman, who is probably one of the smartest, most brilliant NFL players in the league, essentially putting together a skit and basically talking about Beats by Dre, and brilliantly advertised himself without even advertising himself, or promoted his sponsors without even promoting his sponsors. When you have the likes of Richard Sherman, when you have Marshawn Lynch responding the way that he's responding, again, I think we have sports as really a small replica of what's happening in present day corporate America, and then just in America within itself. And I think that there's obvious that there needs to be some type of change. You know, I listen to ESPN analyst Stephen A. Smith.
Oh my!
And I listen to his comments and his thoughts, and it kind of shocks me at his comments, because you would think he would be one that would just based on his commentary and the stance he normally takes. He's normally the guy that takes up for the players, or he'll defend the players. But in this case, it's like he's bashing the player and taking the side of the media and of the NFL, and it kind of shocks me and surprised me to the point to where it's almost like there are times when you're so involved in something that you don't even see it or get it.
And what bothers me about that particular thing is like he's an African American commentator or personality for that particular network, and I understand that he is a member of the media and he has a certain amount of allegiance that he's owed to the profession and all that type of stuff. But for me, it's like he should understand, just based off of culture and where he comes from and probably some of the struggles that he's had to endure getting to where he is, should understand this man, a black athlete who's been taken advantage of by the media, just basically expressing his dislike for what has happened to him in the past and responding from that place. So for me, it's like, okay, I understand that situation. Yeah, it may not be right, but as a member of the shared community, I'm not going to say anything to fuel this. I'm not going to, make him out to be a bad person like some of the other guys, like Chris Carter.
Right.
Hall of Fame receiver that has the same or even greater platform with ESPN and NFL sports. He's just like, the guy just is not media friendly. He just really is not into the media aspect of the game. Just leave him alone. Let him do what he does. He's generating funds just based off his play and winning these championships. Let him go. And then let that be the end of it versus because the world is going to see you as a representative of the black community. They're going to see you as the good Negro when you get up and start talking about, well, what this man should be doing. He should be ashamed of himself. And yes, the league should continue to fine him. Where's the code, man? Like, it should be like a code that just like, I ain't going to really speak on that for real. The man is doing what he feels is best for him. Just let him go. Go interview somebody else, or just take the interview that he gives you and be done with it. But I think it's just a slap in the face to us as a people, because like it or not, he's representing us, because we're in a unique place to where we all get grouped into one group and we all stand together. So I would just like to see our people that have transcended to a certain level of visibility and certain platforms just either shut up or, kind of support and stand with these people versus using that platform to tear us down as a community.
But what really bothers me is, that was at what I saw Chris Carter's statements, and I actually agree with Chris Carter for the first time, because he's one that I tend to not agree with on a lot of occasions. But essentially, he said that they need to change. First off, they need to leave him alone. And I'll get to that point in a second here. But the second point is just that not making the media mandatory, but making it mandated or something along those lines, to essentially where you're not required to go, was what I took from his comments. But back to the first point, in that, there was a petition. There was even a petition by one of the Seattle Seahawks fans to the NFL to basically say, leave him alone. Like, why is it so hard, or why is it so difficult for them just to leave Marshawn Lynch alone? And it's almost the thought process that we're going to keep, for lack of better words, or this is probably the wrong analogy, but we're going to keep beating you until you speak. Until you say Toby.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Like, okay, you're not going to say Toby? Okay, well, we're going to keep on beating you when there are in my opinion, there are other fish to fry. Again, Marshawn Lynch has given the NFL no reason to want to ban him, to want to do anything. Every story that we've heard has been that of he's a great teammate. You don't hear about him being in trouble. He mentors little kids, brings little kids to practice. That's all we've heard. That has even come out of the mouth of a Stephen A. Smith. However, they continue to try to force him to essentially do something, to be something that he's not. And at what point do you change the policy or you change the requirement and you allow a football player to be a football player and not have to be a football player and an entertainer?
That'll never happen. And I will say that it won't happen because the league as it is at its most entertaining probably than it ever has. Of course, it's generating monies that it never did before. And the majority of the contributors to that empire are African-American males. So, and they do it so well.
Who are, like you said, who are the contributors, and they do it so well, but they're not owners of the team. You have a few of them that are head coaches, no owners, and very few that are actually in the on the executive board of the NFL. So when you have lack of representation, then you have lack of there could be a lack of a connection, and there's obviously a disconnect between really. I mean, when you have Richard Sherman and you have Marshawn Lynch, who are two of the smartest, and they're both from the Seattle Seahawks, there may even be a disconnect between the Seattle Seahawks and the NFL. But an interesting point, another interesting point that was made was Richard Sherman's comments to how, for Deflategate, how you had Roger Goodell essentially at the home of Robert Kraft. And that was a very interesting statement in that Richard Sherman essentially said the NFL will not fine the New England Patriots for Deflategate because of the personal relationship between Roger Goodell and Robert Kraft, who is the owner, again, like I said, the owner of the NFL, of the New England Patriots. However, they'll continuously fine Marshawn Lynch because he's not interested in participating with a group of people that essentially take his words and use them out of context. I think there's a disconnect, and I think there's some things that are not right in regards to how Marshawn Lynch and in general, if we use this as a replica or as a small example of how essentially at some workplaces it may translate to how leadership treats the lower employees.
Well, it's a cultural disconnect for sure when you've got predominant culture that's on the field as the employees and another people from another culture that are the owners and calling the shots. So you got the cultural element, but then you've just got this power struggle because, of course, the people at the top don't want to lose that position, and so they have to do whatever they can to crack that whip and remind all other people that they are the ones in control, whether it be through fines, whether it be through suspensions and all that kind of stuff. They're going to put those things in place to keep those employees in order. But people that are within their network, so like you're talking about the commissioner sitting down and visiting with the owner, like they're going to take care of each other. I mean, because you got a situation to where everybody's pushing for finding this guy because he don't want to do interviews, or you suspending these other players for their things that they have going on in their personal lives, the domestic violence things and all that kind of stuff. You punish them on the field for that. Don't let them play certain games. Man loses out on the whole football season. But then an organization gets found to cheat in a playoff game and reportedly to have done it on multiple occasions, break the rules during the game, on the field violation, and nobody talking about that. I ain't heard the commissioner. I haven't seen the commissioner yet say anything about this whole situation. So, and we've seen this before to where there have been owners and people that have had their own set of legal troubles that you never really hear about. They don't get any type of real punishment. But it's just the guys on the field, the ones that really make your money, that seem to get all of this punishment and all they have to endure all of these consequences. So culturally, yes, and then that power structure not only is it in place in things like professional football and in the NBA and stuff like that, but this is the same power structure and the same things that are going on in day-to-day life.
So what are some takeaways as far as how do you handle in your everyday workplace these type of power structures, and when the culture is absolutely different than the environment you've essentially come from?
It is what it is. As long as you have to go in those doors that are run by somebody else, just know that the game is going to be in play, and you have to make a decision on how you're going to approach it. You can take the average approach and just go with it and take whatever they dish out, or you can take the beast mode approach and just set your own ground rules, knowing that it might come with some type of get back, but you might feel better in your own heart of hearts that you took a stand and you stood on what you believed in. And that's the best that I can come. Outside of that, we know we're talking about empowerment and things like that. It's just getting into your own business and setting up your own things to where you become your own owner and your own boss, and you can dictate culture and how things go. I guess the other thing would also be working to get more people striving to get into those shot calling positions, seats of leadership. But once you get to that seat of leadership, don't become culturally insensitive to the people that come from similar backgrounds as yourself. We see that happen a lot of times too. You know, people that come from where we come from, they sat at the table with us and all this kind of stuff. We share stories. They ascend to a certain level, and they just forget about us. So those would probably be the two things that I would say in terms of working in our current social structure.
For me, it's essentially going back to this idea of empowerment, and really what we started the year off with, empowerment, and we started the year off with the power circle. I really believe that this is the year that we see more of close friends, we see more of family members essentially taking that approach. And I think if you do not have the ability to take that approach, then essentially whichever environment you're in, figure out how to get a seat at the table and try to essentially do what you can to change that culture and to change that mindset that is currently embedded in that culture, because that's essentially what it is. It's a mindset. It's a embedded mindset. It is really tied into that generational curse, but it's on the flip side where you have the majority having a mindset and a way of life as to this is the way it is, and this is I was basically created to be the master, and these individuals were created to be at a certain level. And I think that on the flip side, that type of curse or that type of thought process needs to be broken.
And unfortunately, this is all a game. Our workplace, the NFL leadership, and how the owners interact with the players, it's all a game. But it's chess and not checkers, because I was listening to that interview talking about with Stephen A. They also had, I think, Skip Bayless on there, who's another commentator or analyst or whatever you want to call him, and he's Caucasian. And when he was addressing it, he was like the major concern with this situation with Marshawn Lynch and how he's interacting with the interview was that it sets a precedence that down the road more and more stars, more and more athletes might start shutting down on these interviews. And by shutting down on these interviews, it's going to affect the quality of the stories and how it generates money and all those type of things. So it really spoke to, it ain't about the individual. It's not about us on a humanistic, on a person-to-person level. It's more about the bottom line. It's how we can manipulate you to achieve this goal. And the goal, NFL, our workplaces, is that greed, that capitalism, and get money. So with that
ego.
And ego. and power. And so with that being said, it's like if there's a game out there that exists, we as individuals going into these settings have to be willing to play the game and play the game on our terms. So that's going to be studying the lay of the land, studying how people maneuver, what their positions are, what it means, and then being strategic in how we move in these particular settings and using that strategy to put ourselves in a more stable and sustainable position. So I would just impress that upon the Free Lunch Podcast family. Let's be strategic, evaluate what's going on around you, and use your talents and your skills to play this game and play it like chess and not checkers.
That Free Lunch Podcast is the place for you to do just that. This is a movement. This is essentially a group of individuals, including you, the listeners, that have different talents, that have different gifts to give to the universe and give to the world. And it really takes all of us collectively pushing this movement forward. So if you are an artist, if you are a musician, if you are a designer, clothes designer, any type of art that you perform and you want to be a part of the movement, reach out to BG, reach out to myself, so that we can include you on the website and get you promoted on Instagram and IG, and let others know about the great work that you're doing, because what we're trying to do, we're trying to flood the universe. We're trying to flood the United States, the globe, with conscious artwork, conscious people, conscious Southern folk, and really provide them with the voice that's not being heard. And again, I started this way and I'll end this way. There's something going on in which there's going to be this conscious awakening, and technology are going to collide. Where will you be, and what role are you going to play in that collision? And that's all I got.
And we want to connect with you. So if you got stuff, send it to us. Hit us up. We are at the website, freelunchpodcast.com. You can also shoot us a line on Twitter, freelunchpodc, and like us on Instagram, Free Lunch Podcast. We want to hear from you, so just let us know, stay connected to us, and let's get this New South movement pushing forward.
When I was 17, I did what people told me, did what my father said, and let my mother mold me. But that was long ago. I'm in control, never gonna stop. Control. To get what I want, control. I like to have a lot, control. Now I'm all grown up. Woo!
Ric Flair.
Woo!
Ric Flair.
Free Lunch Podcast, home of the New South Movement.